Hello, trading has closed on September 3rd, 2024. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer, go over our calls, make some predictions. Let's do our disclaimer first. It's my trading plan for tomorrow, which is Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. Please remember my calls can be wrong. Trade at your own risk. Also, I have personal business in the afternoon. I might not be risking any of my own money on the call. Now, I have some other people posting on my channel, Norm Winsky and Rod David. Each of them posts periodically. Anybody who wants to post, just send me an email at mejt.trades@gmail.com. If you have a proven track record and you're willing to make a specific call and the reason behind the call, feel free to post, and you can promote any service you want to promote, but that's all you have to do. I enjoy learning from other traders. Now, I know that about fewer than a third of the people who watch my videos also watch Norm Winsky's, but he had a change in trend right after the close on Friday, and that's 3 straight times he's nailed a high or a low. I mean, no one can do it forever, but he's been pretty hot lately with the S&P. Anyway, let's go over our calls. Look for the pattern with the early low. We had that. Tomorrow should also have the early low. We had a target over at 5604. Actually, I was off by a few pennies. I said 5604.36. Should have been 5604.93, but obviously we got that in spades and a lot more. We had a wall into the close. We said it tended to be a false move, and if it were false, we should start by gapping under this low, which we did. And we said if we have an all-day rally on Friday and then gap down, it was very negative, which turned out to be one of my understatements. I think we'll go higher eventually, but I said if my count is correct, we're going to have a drop which is going to last more than a day. I think on a relative basis it'll be mild. I don't think we're going to have a crash, but it could take us tradably lower. MEJT actually gave a few signals during the day. It gave an ultimate sell signal in the morning. That worked. Gave an optional higher target. That hasn't printed yet. We know from a computer study I did that it'll print 95% of the time tomorrow. That number is 5585.14. I think that's out of reach, but that's what the system says. We have, and just remember, it doesn't have to print. If it doesn't print tomorrow, we'll forget it. And we have an ultimate buy signal that ultimately will trade at 5585.42. I get about 150 ultimate signals a year. I get about one failure every 3 years, so the chances are overwhelming. We're going to see that price at some time. It just will print ultimately. It doesn't have to print anytime soon. The afternoon gave an ultimate buy signal and a buy signal. We haven't satisfied the target. Target's 5566.56. If we don't gap down smartly, the rules call for that to print. I'm going to have to follow my rules and make that the call, but wouldn't surprise me at all if it didn't print. And don't forget, if we gap down smartly and futures are down, then the price is off the table. Then the time is off the table, even though the price isn't. I'm not looking for long positions here. I'm looking for places to go short. We showed this chart over the weekend. We had bar 9 of setup on the monthly chart. That's where prices tend to run into trouble. Let's review what was going on in the weekly chart. We were getting set up for one of DeMarc's sell signals, but actually we traded under the origin of setup, and that kills the count. You have to start over again. So it was short-term pain, but actually it's long-term gain that we undercut it, because now we're not working in one of his sell signals, and it'll take months until we come closest to getting one on the weekly chart. And if we trade under this here, 54, 58, 43, that would kill his count, which was getting close to his sell as well. So if we trade under that line, 54, 58, 43, we're not setting up for one of his sell signals, and that'll be a support level. We showed this before. We had this trend line. Here was the first break of the trend line. We said we needed confirmation. Confirmation is a close under that low. Today we got it. Why do I have this line? Oh, that's the low. So we traded under the low. That's the confirmation we need. RSI is still over 50, so if we stop here, we're still in bull market territory, but once we go under it, and I think that's going to happen, then we're no longer making a bull move according to that indicator. Well, we have this as our count. We can't be certain it's right. This might be the end of blue B. It looks a bit short to me. If this is magenta A and magenta B, then magenta C should have some kind of fibrillation to magenta A. So if that's magenta A, and you slide down a bit here, C is equal to A, just under 5100. On the relative basis, it's not a crash, it's not a disaster, but if that's what prints instead of one of these other ones, it can be pretty painful. So on the relative basis, it's under 10%, not a disaster, but just because that works doesn't mean something else won't. I think it's early in the game. So we have B here. We had blue B. We made navy C. And blue C, ideally, should have some kind of Fibonacci relationship to blue A. And I'm not seeing it yet, and I don't think that's over. Well, here's our diamond on stilts pattern. Here's the origin of the left stilt. We said the first challenge tends to hold. The second challenge needs to be separated from the first challenge by time. But when it breaks in grand style, and that's what happened. Now we broke over the origin of the left stilt here, but any break needs confirmation. We didn't trade past the close here, so that break doesn't count. And once you re-challenge this and you're far enough away, it breaks in grand style, and I would call that grand style. That's just one of the indicators, but it's not part of the MEJT system. Now, could this be over? I'm not willing to risk money on it this time, particularly when I'm busy tomorrow, but if this is gold C at 78.6%, gold A is right at 100, so we have a higher target. We have some kind of fib relationship. Maybe we'll get it, but again, when it's this early in the decline, I'm not looking for longs, particularly when they won't be around to close them out. I don't want to get my head handed to me. Well, Wednesday's pattern has a really low regardless of where we open. There's a 55.66.56 MEJT target. Unless we gap down smartly tomorrow, the rules call for it to print. There are also higher targets, but they don't have to print tomorrow. I'm very leery of any higher targets here because we're so early in the decline. Of course, today's drop needs confirmation by trading under today's close, But the high came at a very logical place, and until the market proves otherwise, I think we're headed lower. Significantly lower, but not disastrously lower. Eventually this drop should recover, and the wall with gap pattern at today's high should fill at some time. So we have some higher targets. I'm not going to risk money on them. I think we're going lower, but not disastrously lower. And then I think we're going to recover and trade higher, most likely before the end of 2024. But I think we have a little pain on the downside first. It's a pattern with the early low, and that's today's call.